They said prison walls could silence him. They were wrong. From behind cold steel bars, Big Meech just dropped a message so cryptic, so calculated, it's got the entire rap game shaking, and one rapper looking over his shoulder like the clock just started ticking. Was it a warning? A confession? Or the kind of veiled threat only a kingpin could pull off without breaking a sweat? The streets are buzzing. The blogs are eating it up. And the fans? They're connecting dots no one even knew existed. Why now, after all these years? Why this rapper? And what does it mean that Meech chose this exact moment to break his silence? Some say it's revenge. Others swear it's a power play, a way to remind everyone that even from prison, Meech's reach is longer than your career. Anonymous insiders claim this isn't the first message he sent, just the first one we've caught. Could this be the start of something bigger? Something dangerous? One thing's for sure, when Big Meech talks, people listen. And when he warns, people disappear. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at the game, forever. They thought locking him up meant the game was over. But the game? Oh, it's just started a new season. From inside the concrete maze of federal prison, Big Meech has somehow managed to stir a pot that's been simmering for over a decade, and now it's boiling over. His cryptic message isn't just floating in the ether, it's slicing through the rap world like a warning shot that no one can ignore. The first thing you need to know is this: Meech doesn't speak unless there's a reason. He's not out here making idle chatter about the weather or his lunch tray. Every word, every syllable, is a chess move. And this time, he aimed it right at someone with enough industry clout to make this more than just prison gossip. We're talking about a rapper who's been skating on thin ice for years, dripping in controversy, wrapped in scandals, and yet somehow still smiling for the cameras like nothing can touch him. But let's rewind. Because to understand why this message hit like a sledgehammer, you have to go back to the nights when Meech's name wasn't whispered, it was shouted. Back when the Black Mafia family wasn't a legend, but a living, breathing empire with tentacles in every luxury club, every record label, every so-called untouchable circle. People didn't just respect Meech, they feared him. And that fear didn't fade when the cell doors clanged shut. Sources, you know, the kind that aren't supposed to be talking, claim Meech has been keeping tabs on the outside through a network so tight it makes the feds look sloppy. We're talking encrypted calls, coded letters, and yes, even smuggled voice notes that somehow end up on social media at 3 a.m., right before a blog mysteriously deletes them. And this latest message? Oh, it was nothing short of theatrical. Leaked audio, allegedly from a friendly conversation between Meech and an unnamed associate, has been dissected frame by frame, word by word. He never says the target's name outright, but if you've been paying attention to the subtext, you'd know exactly who he's talking about. Let's just say this rapper has a history of poking bears, burning bridges, and walking away with a smirk. But Meech? He's not the type you poke without consequences. People think because I'm in here, I can't see what's going on, Meech's voice echoes in the clip, low and deliberate. But I see everything. And I remember everything. That line alone has already spawned thousands of conspiracy threads. Everything from old beefs over unpaid street dues, to whispered betrayals at industry after-parties. One particularly spicy theory comes from a former promoter who claims the target once sabotaged a BMF-backed artist's deal, costing Meech millions. If that's true, this message isn't random. It's personal. And here's where it gets even messier. Back in 2014, before the feds tightened their leash, Meech allegedly sent a similar warning to another figure in the game. Within months, that figure's career mysteriously imploded, label dropped him, endorsements vanished, and his closest associates ghosted. No one ever proved the two were connected, but the streets never forgot. So, imagine being the rapper in Meech's crosshairs right now. Every move you make, every gig you book, every photo you post, all under the shadow of a man who's turned waiting into an art form. The blogs are already playing detective, pulling up old interviews, looking for subliminals in song lyrics, even dissecting Instagram captions from years ago. And the deeper they dig, the uglier it gets. One anonymous industry insider claims the target has been making frantic calls to mutual acquaintances, trying to clear the air before things spiral. Another says the target's inner circle is split, half telling him to stand his ground, the other half quietly distancing themselves in case Meech's warning isn't just talk. And don't think the fans aren't eating this up. TikTok is flooded with decoding the message videos. Twitter's a war zone of memes, hot takes, and fake screenshots of DMs that may or may not be real. And YouTube? Channels like Spillover are turning this into a multi-part saga, connecting dots most of us didn't even know existed. But here's the million-dollar question. How is Meech managing this from inside one of the most heavily monitored federal facilities in the country? Officially, he's got no access to unmonitored communication. Unofficially, well, let's just say there's a reason the feds are suddenly reviewing security procedures. One theory is that Meech's message wasn't sent directly at all, but through a chain of intermediaries so layered, so carefully chosen, that even if someone wanted to trace it back, they'd hit a dead end. Another theory? That the feds want this message out there, as bait, to see who reacts. If that's the case, the rapper in question might already be walking into a trap without realizing it. And while all this plays out in the open, you have to wonder what's happening in the shadows. Are old alliances being reactivated? Are debts being called in? Or is this all just a masterclass in psychological warfare, letting the target's paranoia do the work for him? One thing is certain, this isn't just about one rapper. Meech's words have a ripple effect, reminding everyone, from hustlers in the trenches to suits in record label boardrooms, that the power dynamics in hip-hop aren't decided by charts or awards. They're decided by who controls the narrative, and who can back it up. But here's where it gets even darker. A leaked snippet of a second conversation, again, unverified but chilling, has surfaced. In it, Meech allegedly says, "Sometimes the loudest warning is silence." No names, no threats, just that. And yet, the target hasn't posted anything in over a week. For a man who lives on social media, that's suspicious. Very suspicious. And if you think that's the end of it, think again. Because just when the blog started to cool down, another bombshell dropped, a grainy photo of Meech, smiling in what looks like a prison yard, with a man whose identity is blurred out. The caption? He knows. That's it. 2 words. But those 2 words have set off a wildfire of speculation about who he is, and what he knows that could blow this entire thing open. What's even more intriguing is that the original post vanished within minutes, but not before it was screenshotted and shared thousands of times. Now the image is everywhere, dissected for clues, from the background shadows to the watch on Meech's wrist. Some claim the blurred figure matches the build of the targeted rapper's former bodyguard. If that's true, then Meech isn't just sending a message. He's holding a loaded secret, ready to fire. And here's the part no one wants to say out loud. If Meech has actual proof tying this rapper to past betrayals, the fallout won't just be career-ending. It could be life-changing, in the worst possible way. Which brings us right to the edge of the next chapter, because the next move, that's the one that could flip this from a headline into a full-blown industry earthquake. The whispers had turned into full-blown chatter, and the chatter was now morphing into open speculation. In the days since Big Meech's cryptic message slipped through the cracks of federal security, the streets have been in overdrive. The next move everyone's been waiting for didn't come in the form of an outright threat. That would have been too easy. No, Meech is playing the long game. Instead of a direct strike, he's feeding the machine with just enough to keep the target restless, distracted, and paranoid. And paranoia? That's a dangerous drug in the hip-hop world. Within 48 hours of the photo leak, you know, the one with the blurred-out figure, an unverified audio file began circulating in private Telegram groups. It's low quality, distorted, and every word sounds like it's wrapped in static. But if you filter through the noise, there's a voice that sounds suspiciously like Meech's, talking about unfinished debts and loyalty tests. Again, no names. But people swear they can hear the outline of a story, one that dates back to a night in Miami almost a decade ago. Here's where things get surgical. Bloggers have pieced together that during that Miami trip, Meech's crew was reportedly in the same hotel as the target rapper. Some claim that a deal, worth hundreds of thousands, went sideways that night, with money disappearing and accusations flying behind closed doors. If that's the real backstory, then Meech's unfinished debts comment just went from vague to laser-focused. And it's not just the internet sleuths connecting dots. According to an industry insider, one who's been feeding celebrity press tidbits for years, the target has already canceled 2 upcoming performances. Officially, it's due to scheduling conflicts. Unofficially, he's making fewer public appearances and beefing up private security. When the man who brags about walking anywhere without fear suddenly starts traveling with a wall of bodyguards, you don't need a detective badge to know something's off. Meanwhile, Meech's old associates have been resurfacing in subtle but telling ways. A former BMF lieutenant popped up on Instagram Live, sipping champagne and dropping lines like, "Loyalty has an expiration date if you cross the wrong man." Another ex-ally, who's been quiet for years, posted a photo of a chessboard mid-game with the caption, "Check is coming." They never tag Meech, never name the target, but the subtext is screaming. And the target? Oh, he's feeling the pressure. His latest single, which was supposed to drop last week, has been delayed without explanation. One rumor says he scrapped the track entirely because it contained lyrics that could now be interpreted as shots at Meech. Imagine that, your own art suddenly becomes evidence against you in a fight you didn't ask for, or maybe you did years ago, thinking the king wouldn't remember. Here's where the psychological warfare gets beautiful and dangerous. Meech doesn't have to do much. He's letting the target unravel himself. Every cautious move, every cancelled plan, every off-brand Instagram caption becomes part of the narrative. The streets are watching, and when the streets watch, they talk. And when they talk, the legend grows. Now, about those loyalty tests mentioned in the audio. According to documents that mysteriously landed in our inbox, no return address, no signature, there's chatter about Meech reaching out to people still connected to the target. Old managers, former crew members, even a cousin who once doubled as a security driver. The idea? To see who still answers the call when Meech's name comes up. And from what these papers suggest, some of those people are talking, and talking a lot. One particular note stands out: he never saw it coming. The person closest to him is the one carrying the truth. Chilling, right? If that's real, then the target isn't just looking over his shoulder for Meech. He's looking around his own table, wondering which smile hides the knife. And let's not forget, Meech has history with using information as leverage. Back in the mid-2000s, when another artist crossed him, the fallout didn't come through violence. It came through the slow leak of humiliating stories, all perfectly timed to drop right before major album launches. By the time the dust settled, that artist's credibility was in shambles, and the industry doors slammed shut. Is that what's happening here? If it is, we might be watching a career dismantling itself in real time. Public reaction is already at fever pitch. Twitter Spaces have turned into midnight forums dissecting every line of Meech's past interviews for hidden meanings. TikTok edits pair his old photos with ominous instrumentals and captions like "Even behind bars, the boss moves in silence." The hashtag Meech message has racked up millions of views, each clip claiming to have the real inside scoop, though let's be honest, most of it is pure speculation served hot. And while the public speculates, the media's having a field day. Celebrity press received a tip from an untraceable email, claiming the feds are now casually interested in the renewed tension between Meech and his target. Not because they care about rap beefs, but because where there's smoke in Meech's world, there's usually a trail of money, influence, and connections that lead to much bigger fish. If that's true, then this message could end up reopening old cases the target thought were long dead. The beauty, or the terror, of all this is that Meech hasn't broken a single public rule. No direct threats, no names, no explicit actions. Just shadows, whispers, and the occasional photo or phrase to keep the pot boiling. Which means if the target tries to retaliate publicly, he risks looking paranoid, or worse, guilty. And then came the kicker. Out of nowhere, a screenshot starts making the rounds. It's supposedly from the target's private group chat, where someone asks, "What's the move?" And the reply reads, "We wait. Let him make the next mistake." Whether it's real or fake, it's gasoline on the fire. Now the narrative shifts. Is the target plotting a counterplay? Is he waiting for Meech to overstep? Or is this just bravado to keep his own circle calm? Either way, the stage is set. We're no longer talking about a single message from behind bars. We're watching a high-stakes chess match, one that's spilling into music releases, public appearances, and even potential legal scrutiny. The air around this whole saga had already been thick with suspicion, but after that alleged group chat leak, it turned heavy. The kind of heavy where people stop answering phone calls. The kind of heavy where Instagram lives suddenly end mid-sentence. The kind of heavy where silence says more than words ever could. And in that silence, Big Meech made his boldest move yet. It wasn't an audio leak this time. It wasn't a blurry photo from the prison yard. No, this time it was a perfectly clear, perfectly timed letter, handwritten in Meech's distinct, sharp-slanted penmanship, that somehow ended up in the hands of a journalist with just enough credibility to make it impossible to ignore. The letter didn't call out names. It didn't detail crimes. But every line dripped with intent. My patience, it read, is not infinite. My memory is not short. And my reach has no limits. The letter was short, no more than 2 paragraphs, but the date at the top was the real grenade. It was marked a week before the first audio leak, which means every step of this cryptic message timeline, already in motion before the public even knew a storm was coming. The target's camp, of course, went into PR overdrive. They issued statements about fabricated documents and baseless rumors. But here's the thing, they never outright denied that the message was about them. And when you're dealing with Meech, not denying is almost the same as admitting. Behind the scenes, the ripples were turning into waves. Promoters began quietly pulling the target's name from upcoming event flyers. A sneaker brand that had him headlining their launch party suddenly replaced his face with a special guest silhouette. Even one of his longtime collaborators posted a cryptic tweet, "Business is business. Survival is survival." The timing wasn't lost on anyone. Meanwhile, the streets, and the blogs, were amplifying everything. Celebrity press received an anonymous tip claiming that Meech's camp had acquired something tangible. No one will say what it is, but words like proof, footage, and signed papers keep popping up in whispers. If true, that means Meech isn't just rattling the cage, he's holding the keys to lock it shut. And here's where the fear really sets in. Because in Meech's world, information isn't just a weapon, it's a currency. And currency, in the wrong hands, can buy anything: silence, betrayal, or the total collapse of a public image. Let's talk consequences. If this tangible proof ever sees daylight, the fallout could go way beyond music. We're talking legal investigations, contract breaches, even old enemies resurfacing to pile on. Remember, Meech has been through the federal system. He knows exactly how to drop just enough breadcrumbs for the right agencies to start sniffing around. And once they do, well, the target might not just be fighting for his career. The target's response so far has been a masterclass in deflection, or desperation, depending on who you ask. He started posting motivational quotes, sharing throwback photos with captions about loyalty and growth. But the comments section tells the real story. Every post is flooded with fans asking about Meech's letter, demanding to know what really happened in Miami, what unfinished debts means. Even more telling, rumors that the target has reached out through intermediaries to clear the air with Meech himself. One source claims a message was sent offering mutual respect and a promise to let the past stay in the past. But if that's true, Meech hasn't taken the bait. Because why would he? In his position, letting the tension build only increases his leverage. And leverage is exactly what's at play here. One thing people forget about Meech is that his influence isn't measured in Instagram followers or chart placements. It's measured in how many people owe him, in one way or another. And right now, it feels like half the industry is waiting to see which side of this chessboard they'll be forced to stand on. The most dangerous part? Meech hasn't made a single overtly aggressive move. Everything so far has been indirect, messages, hints, pressure points. Which means if the target snaps first, he risks looking like the one escalating the situation. And that's the trap. Fans are already speculating about how this ends. Some say it'll fizzle out quietly, a private handshake behind closed doors. Others believe Meech is setting up for one final public checkmate, the kind of reveal that ends careers in one Instagram post. And the wildest theory? That Meech is using this entire situation as a warning to someone else entirely, and the target is just collateral damage in a much bigger game. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain, the rules have changed. Because now it's not just about one message or one rapper. It's about the reminder that Big Meech still holds a kind of power that can't be measured in streams or awards. Power that can reach from a federal cell to the top of the charts. Power that can make people vanish from the spotlight without ever touching them. And for the target, the clock is ticking. Every day without resolution is another day the public speculates, another day promoters hesitate, another day his brand quietly erodes. That's the brilliance, and the cruelty, of Meech's play. He doesn't have to rush. He can let the world do the work for him. But here's where I leave you with a question, because if Meech has already made his point, What's the real endgame? Is this about revenge? Control? Or is it about sending a message so loud that everyone in the industry hears it without a single name being said? If this is checkmate, we may not even see the final move. And if you think you're ready for the next twist, trust me, you're not. So here we are, after weeks of whispers, leaks, and moves so calculated they could teach masterclasses in psychological warfare. One thing is painfully clear: Big Meech doesn't just send messages, he rewrites the rules of the game. From a prison cell, he's managed to shake the foundation of an entire industry, rattle a man who built his career on fearlessness, and remind everyone watching that real power doesn't need a microphone or a spotlight. But now the question is, what happens next? Does Meech drop the so-called tangible proof and end this man's career in one move? Does the target finally crack and fire back publicly, risking the kind of backlash you can't come back from? Or is this all part of a much bigger, much darker strategy, one that's aimed at someone else entirely, and we're just watching the warm-up? I'll tell you this much: if the last few weeks have shown us anything, it's that you can lock a man in a cell, but you can't cage his influence. And when that influence is Big Meech, every single person in his orbit needs to watch their step. So I'm asking you, what do you think? Is Meech going to pull the trigger on this chess match? Is the target just the first domino? And if you were in that position, knowing a man like Meech was watching you from the shadows, what would your next move be? Drop your theories in the comments, because I'm reading every single one of them. Hit that like button if you think Meech still runs the game from inside. Subscribe to Gossip Star Press, because this is where the truth doesn't just leak, it explodes. And trust me, the next chapter? You don't want to miss it.